Well, some of you may have heard or seen Thordis Elva and Tom Stranger discussing their book South of Forgiveness on radio and TV this week. During a teenage romance in 1996, Tom, then 18, raped 16-year-old Thordis. Now, right now, they both want people to understand the shame, blame, silence and suffering they each went through and the difference forgiveness, decades later, has brought to each of them. Does forgiving set you free? I mean, could you forgive somebody in the same way that Thordis has, that we saw on television, heard on the radio this week?
The story of Thordis Elva is her own personal, individual journey, and she states that that in some ways has helped her to feel freer, more free. I suppose I'm also interested in how we can free the whole of society from epidemic levels of male violence against women and children. An estimated 80,000 rapes every year, over 400,000 sexual assaults, 2 women every week in this country murdered by a violent male partner. Now, forgiving, it is about self-help. It's a journey of self-help, and I think we should support women to do that and to feel in control of themselves and their lives. I don't agree with scrutinising women even more than they're already scrutinised, but as well as self-help, we need societal help. We need to heal the problems and fractures in society that cause these horrendous crimes in the first place.
So why is there this epidemic? Why is there this epidemic, as you put it?
Because women are unequal.
And because men are socialised to have entitlement over women's bodies, and men are socialised to be allowed to do that, and actually to be perpetuated by a wider societal structure which undermines women's sense of agency, sense of right over their own bodies.
That is what Tom himself said. That is what Tom Stranger said, that he felt that as a man it was a win for him, that he had a right over his girlfriend's body because he was dating her, that they'd been out on a night out, they'd been drinking alcohol together, and that he wouldn't be a proper young man if he didn't have sex with her at the end of the night. He said himself that he felt pressured. He said himself he didn't feel he enjoyed it greatly, but he felt that's what he was supposed to do, and also that's what he deserved, as if the body of that woman was his birthright somehow, and that was his own words.
I think society in some ways allows that to happen. So if you look at what the other things that are defined as hate crime, so disability hate crime, race hate crime, misogyny is not a hate crime. So on a daily basis, I'm sure all of the women in this audience will have encountered some form of sexism, whether that's catcalling, whether that's something going on in work, whether that's a whole range of different things.
And if we're talking about women and children and the difficulties that they face in taking cases forward, the very low numbers we have for rape convictions in this country, for example, justice holds people back, not just as individuals, but the whole of society is held back by not giving social justice to people who've been victimised in these ways.
How would you increase the number of rape convictions in this country?
Well, I would improve the police. I mean, there's plenty of reports on this. There's a culture of disbelief, for a start, which surrounds people who report rape. So that needs to change. There's been problems with the police no-criming rapes. The CPS doesn't take cases forward based on stereotypical judgments about women's sexuality. Had she been drinking? What was she wearing? Did she know the man before? We're still dealing with sort of very archetypal stereotypes
Ashley,
about women's sexuality.
do you want to come in on this general debate? You've been listening with great interest, but David will come to in a second. A man who's written another very interesting book.
Well, I think that there's an issue right now around moral panics around rape, and
Do you understand the definition of a moral panic?
Yeah, and I'm really sorry to say that, because I know that that's, how do you, come up against something like that, victims.
What do you mean by a moral panic around it?
I think that there's a tendency now to subtly sort of, I don't disagree that obviously rape is a horrible thing, but there's a tendency to sort of make the barriers around what constitutes harassment a little bit fuzzy, and we've sort of built up this idea that there's this huge epidemic of male violence, but what's being defined as male violence is a little funny. So
that's because there is an epidemic of male violence.
No,
it's
like
not
for
like
example,
every
catcalling
single.
is meant to be. It's meant to be male violence. Now, I'm supposed to be like really insulted by that, and that's sexual harassment.
Wait. Excuse me, everybody. Excuse me. Ashley.
That's why I was afraid to say anything.
No.
Is that, you know, I remember when I was a teenager walking down the street, you know, in the days of Britney Spears with a tummy top, and the cars would go by and whistle at us. And I was with one of my friends, and she turns around and goes, "Thank you." And I said, "Shh, you're not supposed to like that." You know, and I think that it's a little bit of bad faith around these sorts of things, that we're supposed to be really, really offended by male attention, but actually some women do enjoy male
You've
attention.
switched what you're talking about, because you started by saying
Well,
there's
hang on,
a moral...
ladies
So I
and
think
gentlemen,
that's
ladies and gentlemen,
right.
what I need to do is I need to try and
Defining male
get in
violence
touch with the
is not
BBC
fun.
and
I
get an
didn't say that.
extension on this debate, because we've just ended some fascinating territory, but unfortunately we're out of time. Thank you all very much indeed.